A King and a Court of Fools by H. Ryan. Written by Larry Enright and read by Larry Enright. Copyright 2011, all rights reserved. A King and the Court of Fools. Sunday started out like any other Sunday at the Ryans. Up by 7, fight over who gets to use the bathroom first, argue over how many minutes each is allowed, get dressed for church by 8, and be starving and out the door 5 minutes later. We never ate Sunday breakfast until after Mass because fasting was required from midnight on if you wanted to receive Holy Communion. And in an Irish Catholic family like the Ryans, we wanted to, whether we wanted to or not. Actually, I was the only one who hadn't yet received First Holy Communion. That would come the following year. So technically, I was exempt from the fasting rule. But no one ever took the time to explain that to me. I starved along with the rest of them until we got home. We got back to the house, washed up, and started in on the breakfast preparations. We were an army on a mission, a coordinated unit with a specific purpose and detailed orders. Extreme hunger does that to you. My job was making the orange juice, 1 can of Minute Maid concentrate and 3 cans of water. But not just any water. It had to be cold water from the pitcher Mom set aside to chill in the fridge. Otherwise, it tasted like you were drinking from a swimming pool. That was really all there was to it. Dad cooked the bacon. He always made the bacon just the way we liked it, in a big stuck-together pile on the plate. Mom made the scrambled eggs, never too runny and never too dry. Mary and Kate set the table. Sam made the toast, and Tom... Mary lined up the knife, fork, and spoon at Mom's place. "Why doesn't Tom ever help with breakfast, Mom?" "He does, dear. He helps with the cleanup." "But so do we," Kate said. "I supervise. It's a thankless job." "Why would I thank you for doing nothing?" Mary asked. "There, see what I mean? Thankless." Bacon smoke began filling the room from the ceiling down. "Dan, you're burning the bacon," Mom said. Dad had been looking at the sports page. He gave the bacon a toss. "I like it crisp." Tom fanned the smoke our way and laughed. "He makes coffee the same way, crisp." "Tom, please help your father with the other pan." "Yes, ma'am." Tom took the second spatula from Dad and turned the fire down under the bacon. Mom opened the windows and Sam the front door to let the smoke out. "Dad," Tom asked, "can we go to the fairgrounds today to see the Pink Lady?" Sunday was a day of rest. That meant no yard work, no housework, no sewing, no fixing the broken basement door, no shopping, and usually no going anywhere. Not that Dad thought that packing the family up in the Rambler and taking them out on Sunday was work. I'm sure it wasn't that. He just liked being at home 1 day a week with nothing to do. So we were all surprised when he answered, "Yes, I think that would be fine, Tom. We can pack a picnic lunch." Mom scooped the eggs out into a large serving bowl and poured cold water into the iron skillet in preparation for cleaning it after we ate. Mom never used dish detergent to clean that pan, just water and elbow grease, and then a light seasoning with corn oil. Nothing ever stuck to that pan. The water hissed and popped, and a plume of steam rose from the pan. "We should invite your mother and father, Dan. We haven't seen them in 2 weeks." "That's a good idea, Helen. I'll call Dad after breakfast." Tom helped Dad heap the bacon onto a single plate, and the excess grease pooled under the still sizzling bacon. After breakfast, Mom always poured it into the empty Minute Maid container and mixed it with Quaker oats and peanut butter to make a goopy paste that we slopped into the crotch of an old tree at the edge of the yard for the bluebirds. Tom set the bacon plate on the table and took 3 pieces for himself. "Can we invite AJ too, Dad?" "There's only enough bacon for 2 each." Dad pointed at Tom's plate, and one of his pieces magically moved back to the serving dish, with a little help from Mary. "The gentleman you met yesterday?" "Yes, sir." "AJ and Granddad were in the same regiment in World War I, Sam said. Dad took his place at the head of the table. "I don't see why not. I'll take a drive over there after breakfast and ask him." He bowed his head. Now, let's say grace. We gave thanks and ate every last bite we were thankful for, including the third strip of bacon that Sam traded to Tom for his toast. After breakfast, Dad called Granddad, and then he and Sam went over to Mr. Taylor's while we helped Mom clean up and prepare the picnic lunch. Tom took the trash out and went off to let the other Caswells know where we were going. He got back to the house about the same time as Dad, Sam, and AJ. I could tell he was excited about seeing the Pink Lady. He came right to the kitchen and in true kingly fashion began organizing our trip. Mary, do this. Kate, carry that. Sam, make sure of this. Harry, double check on that. Mom, did you pack this? Dad, do we need that? There was only one little hiccup when Mom slid over to the middle of the Rambler's bench seat and let Mr. Taylor have the window. But Tom handled it gracefully, telling AJ that he was happy to give up his seat to a World War I hero, and we were soon on our way to the county fairgrounds. Tom decided on the ride over that we would walk around the fairgrounds first, look at the exhibits, and then watch the Pink Lady show at 1 p.m. Dad found a parking spot in the shade, close to the turnstiles, and we rolled all the windows down so the car wouldn't get too hot and spoil the food in the cooler. Looking back on it, it seems odd that we didn't lock the car to protect our things, but Mom and Dad always said that anyone desperate enough to steal our lunch must have needed it and was welcome to it. None of that mattered much when the air raid siren sounded just as we walked through the turnstiles. Tom grabbed my hand and took command. We're under attack. Everyone to the bomb shelter. Let's go. Children were screaming, parents shouting. Civil defense wardens appeared out of nowhere, blowing whistles and calling out orders that no one could hear. It was mass confusion. We followed Tom through the crowd, trying to stay close together. We knew exactly where the county had placed the bomb shelters for everyone to use in case of attack by the commies, and getting to them was our only hope of avoiding obliteration when they dropped the H-bomb on us. A squadron of planes flew low overhead in a roar even louder than a siren. The bombs would be coming any second. Sam screamed, "We're not going to make it!" "Just keep going, we're almost there." Tom pointed to the bomb shelter entrance. We broke into a run and made it inside, just seconds to spare. The siren stopped, and it was suddenly very quiet. Other kids had made it too, and a few parents. They huddled in the shelter with us, not knowing what to do next. Kate looked around. "Where are Mom and Dad?" "They were with Mr. AJ. I was scared and sad and wanted to cry. "Then they're all dead," Tom said. "And we're on our own now. As the oldest, I'm in charge." Kate gave him a shove. "Says who?" Tom shook his fist at her. "Says me and my friend here." Mary stood up and brushed off her dress. "If you're going to be Dad, I get to be Mom. I'm going to make scrambled eggs now." Kate got up too. "I'm not hungry. Besides, you don't have any eggs. They were blown to smithereens." "Your brain was blown to smithereens," Tom said. "I don't believe this," Sam said. "They've just blown up the world, and you two were still fighting?" I tugged on Tom's arm. "I don't like this. I want Mommy." He looked down at me and shrugged. "Okay. But don't come bawling to me when the radiation rots your eyeballs and turns you into a zombie." "Tom, stop it. Don't you see he's going to cry?" "Fine, Kate." Tom put his arm around me and we all walked out into the midday sunlight. Mom, Dad, and AJ were waiting for us in the fairground's outer exhibit area, an asphalt parking lot dotted with different models of backyard bomb shelters, each with its own air raid siren that sounded when anybody pushed the button, and each manned by its own uniformed civil defense warden, ready to explain its features, cost, and benefits, and tell you why you needed several tons of aluminum and concrete buried in your backyard in this dangerous post-Korean War world. Despite the imminent threat of H-bomb attack from the communists and the distinct possibility that we would all be turned into brain-eating zombies by the radiation, they were unable to convince Dad to buy one. It wasn't until much later that we discovered that the wardens were actually just salesmen from different aluminum fabrication companies, out to make a buck off the world's Cold War-era paranoia. Originally built to host the county fair each year, the fairgrounds were surrounded by a beautiful expansive park, a perfect family gathering place on Sundays. There were plenty of picnic tables and shelters with barbecue pits and fireplaces for cooking. There were wide open fields for starting up a game of softball, tag, touch football, or anything else that kids could think up. And there were trails for walking, a stable with horses for riding, and bicycle rentals. Parents were not shy about meeting other parents there, and were happy to sit and talk the afternoon away while their children enjoyed the freedom of unstructured play in a place where there was nothing to break and the rules were of their own making. On the fairgrounds themselves, they hosted antique car shows, boat shows, craft fairs, and other events, most of which were free. And there were always local celebrities there doing the same things we ordinary people did, looking at the exhibits, eating cotton candy, playing the goofy carnival games, riding the Ferris wheel, and maybe even pretending to hide in a bomb shelter. And this gave us a chance to meet them up close and see that they really weren't any different than us. There were so many buildings to walk through and so many things to see that you could easily spend the entire day there and not get through everything. There were also displays of the Army's most advanced weaponry, tanks, cannons, racks of automatic rifles, and actual soldiers to teach us how to hold a rifle or fire a bazooka. There were even Navy jets parked there, and we joined the line of kids waiting for a turn at sitting in the cockpit and listening to a real Navy pilot show us how to fly. The girls weren't much interested in that and wandered off to the craft booths with Mom. "This is taking too long," Tom complained. The air was so thick with humidity that it felt like part of your skin. It was one of those hazy days where it was too bright to look at anything without squinting, even with our pirates' caps on. "Why don't we stop over at the VFW booth?" Dad suggested. "I think both AJ and I wouldn't mind getting out of the sun. And I'll bet they have pink lemonade for you boys." "Will Granddad be there?" I asked. Dad smiled. "Most likely, Harry." "Then it's settled," AJ said, taking his red, white, and blue-brimmed straw hat off and wiping his brow. We walked toward the fair's most famous attraction, a 15-foot-high grandfather clock powered by a steam engine. Through the steam clock's glass walls, the brass gears spun, and the pendulum swayed back and forth, and you could actually watch time pass as it ticked off the seconds. It was the kind of thing we could stare at for hours. Everyone knew where the steam-powered clock was, and if you wanted to meet up with anyone at the fair, that was the place. "Are you looking for someone, Tom?" Dad asked. We had stopped to watch the clock, and Tom was looking around like something was missing or something was going to happen. Tom shrugged. "I was just wondering if the others were going to make it." "I thought I saw Bobby Fay going into one of the bomb shelters," Sam offered, but that didn't seem to cheer Tom up at all. "I'm sure you'll catch up with him later," Dad said, and we moved on. We passed the stables and pens used during the county fair in August. They were empty, but the sweet smell of hay lingered in the thick air, reminding me of our Uncle Kenny's farm north of Pittsburgh, where we'd visit once a year. Uncle Kenny had the best barn and hayloft in the world, and visiting him was much more fun than we could fit in a single afternoon. Beyond the stables were the craft booths, where we saw Mom and the girls wandering around picking up and sniffing all those girly things that they loved to smell and that we pinched our noses and scrunched our faces up at. At the VFW booth, we found Grandma and Granddad sitting in the shade talking to other veterans. Granddad and AJ hit it off right away, and before we all had our paper cups full of pink lemonade, they'd figured out that their squads had been positioned on opposite sides of the road, protecting their regiment's flank at the Battle of Belleau Wood. The ladies serving the drinks pinned an American flag to each of our shirts, and we saluted them in return. Mom, Mary, and Kate joined us, loaded with free, smelly samples from the booths, and we were all relaxing under the canopy when the announcement came over the loudspeaker that the Pink Lady had arrived and the show would start in 10 minutes. "Tom, what on earth is the matter?" Mom asked, feeling his forehead. I'm not sick, Mom. He tried, but there was never escaping Dr. Mom. You don't feel hot, but your hands are all sweaty. I'm fine. Can we go, please? I want to be right next to the track. We walked down the steps through the bleachers toward the track. The stands were filling up slowly. With the sun beating down and the heat rolling in waves across the black asphalt, people were in no hurry to bake in the sun. Tom took one last look back at the steam clock, stopped, and waved. "Save me a place," he called, running back up the steps. At the far end of the track, the gate opened, and two cowgirls dressed in pink chaps rode in on horseback. We reached the railing as they galloped past us to the reviewing stand and reared their horses. An honor guard of Granddad's friends from the VFW marched to the infield with their flags of their regiment and the United States, and took up positions around a cannon. The announcer's voice boomed over the PA. "Ladies and gentlemen and children of all ages, please rise for the national anthem." The Star-Spangled Banner began playing over the loudspeakers, and we stood at attention, put our hands over our hearts, and sang. Everyone cheered and clapped at the end, including Tom and Bonnie Shadle, who had snuck up behind us. Tom grinned. "Mom, Dad, this is Bonnie. She's a friend from school. Can she have lunch with us?" "Hello, Bonnie," Mom said. "Of course you're welcome to join us. We brought plenty of food." "Thank you, Mrs. Ryan. That's very kind of you." "That's a pretty daisy in your hair, Bonnie, but it's missing a few petals, isn't it?" The flower, fastened with a yellow hairpin, had only one petal left. Sam half whispered, "It's a love me not flower, Dad. Tom loves Bonnie." "Is that so? Well, nice to meet you, Bonnie," Dad said to her. "Any friend of Tom's is a friend of ours." "They kiss on the playground all the time," Kate snickered. Tom's face turned as red as a tomato. "We do not." "That's not what I heard," Mary said. "I heard you sit in a tree and kiss all the time." She puckered up and made a smooching sound right in his face. We all knew we would pay for this later, but the impact of future consequences for kids generally don't extend beyond the next 10 minutes. Tom ignored their teasing and pushed a spot open at the rail that he and Bonnie squeezed into. The loudspeaker crackled, trumpets blared, and there she was at the end of the track, the Pink Lady, revving her Corvette. The cannon boomed, and a cheer rose from the crowd into the afternoon sky as the car took off. The Pink Lady roared down the straightaway, accelerating into the far turn. As one, the crowd gasped when she downshifted and slid through it, tires squealing. Coming out of the arc in total control, she gunned the engine and picked up speed. 100 feet from where we were standing, she hit the brakes, coming to a stop on the other side of the railing from us. "Hey, Tom Ryan, I thought I saw you coming around that turn. Would you like a ride around the track, darling?" She looked at Bonnie. "I can fit too, if you scrunch up." Tom took Bonnie's hand. "Will you ride in the Pink Lady's car with me? You know, like on a date?" She smiled and nodded. They ducked under the railing together. Halfway to the car, Tom looked back at me and stopped. "Would it be okay if my little brother went instead of us? If you still want to go on a date, I'll go on the Ferris wheel with you." Bonnie touched the daisy to make sure it was still there. "Sure." Frankie Marks once said we were fools for listening to Tom and following him around. But that day, as I rode around the county fair track in the front seat of the Pink Lady's Corvette and waved to everyone, the Caswells, Bonnie, AJ, Grandma and Granddad, Mom and Dad, the Finnertys, and yes, even Frankie Marks, I was happy for at least that day to be a king in the Court of Fools.